This is The KJ Show. The KJ Show with host Dr. Katherine Johnson is a mix of breaking news and practical advice on the many ways in which the energy industry can affect you and your family. Katherine will combine energy updates and conversations with leaders in the energy efficiency community. So please welcome your host, Dr. KJ.
Hello and welcome to the KJ Show with Dr. KJ. That would be me, Dr. Katherine Johnson, your host, and I'd like to talk about all things energy related, and sometimes I go a little off topic, but that's only for fun stuff. But I do want to talk today about how nuclear energy is sort of the comeback kid. It is going to be powering our energy future, whether or not the renewable folks like it. And guess what? It's even now starting to be called renewable energy in Europe, which I always thought it was. But anyway, so today I'm talking about nuclear energy and the future it holds and the promise it holds. And it's not your dad's power plant, by the way. But first, I always like to start with fun, with stuff you cannot make up. And this is got to be classic. So the UN has been in the news. Obviously, Donald Trump gave a big speech there yesterday, and all the world leaders were there. Well, a couple weeks before, the UN decided to get their scientists together and talk about this wonderful idea they had that scares the daylights out of me. They want to actually solar geoengineer as a way to stop global warming. If you want to put up the picture, you can see it. I've talked about this before, but basically they want to put up big, large umbrellas to block the sun to prevent global warming. And the UN scientists are all in favor of this. The problem is most of the other scientific community is aghast that this would even be such a topic. And that they're like, do they not understand that this could harm the planet? Do they not understand that global dimming is not a good solution? But apparently UN scientists think it's a really good idea because there's growing concerns about the lack of global efforts to cut emissions. So we'll just block the sun. That sounds like a great solution. Of course, as my son references, have they never seen this movie Snowpiercer? I haven't, but apparently it's when the sun is blocked. But another one said the UN's chief scientist, now this gives me pause, said it's naive to ignore a group of technologies that could have global implications. Yeah, no kidding, except that geoengineering has a lot of global implications, and they're worried that this basically you're putting up all these different ways in which you can mechanically or chemically basically pollute the atmosphere. And it's unproven concepts such as dimming sunlight by intentionally polluting the upper atmosphere with thousands of tons of artificial particles. Wait a minute. We're going to pollute the atmosphere and dim the sun so to save the planet. How does that make any sense to anybody who is in the renewable industry? And the thing is, it doesn't. And in fact, in my Substack that came out yesterday, I have a whole article published about how scientists are just horrified that this is even happening and talk about in great detail all of the disasters that would befall us if we block the sun. Not to mention we could go extinct like maybe the dinosaurs. The idea is to slow the rise of global temperatures by deflecting incoming solar energy away from the Earth's surface. Does that sound like something bad 1950s thing takes over Manhattan kind of thing? But the problem is, this is also causing a lot of tension within the climate impact community, and they're worried that some rogue governments may do this. Sounds like something out of James Bond, doesn't it? And the UN is very worried, but they basically stacked the deck and only had scientists that could talk positively about this at their recent event. Why am I not surprised? There's also widespread scientific agreement, I guess the UN isn't paying attention, about the risks that they think it needs to be explored, according to James Hansen, who used to be the NASA administrator. He's revered as a climate expert. He's actually been widely denounced. But it just sort of scares me that they have these scientists who actually think, let's go tamper with Mother Nature. Not a good idea. Never works. Speaking of which, the other thing I want to talk about today was really interesting. You know how we're always worried about, we have climate anxiety and the Earth's going to end, and supposedly yesterday was Rapture Day, and there's all these concerns about the world coming to an end. Well, apparently human beings and their, yes, that's what Benjamin said, have they not watched Snowpiercer? But one of the things that concerns all of us is, humanity's going to die. We're going to die. We're going to go extinct. Well, apparently early humans, the original ancestors, us, Homo sapiens, called Homo sapiens, millions of years before Homo sapiens were around, these creatures, these forefathers of ours, actually adapted quite well to changing climates. And they were very resourceful. In fact, according to a professor at University of Calgary, Jed Kaplan, he said Homo erectus are the first relatives to have human-like body proportions, and they were really adept at moving around the planet and adapting to various temperature conditions. You mean human beings are more resilient than we're given credit for? And we don't have to worry about global extinction? Again, that doesn't fit into the argument of the energy alarmists, now does it? More than a million years ago, before Homo sapiens emerged, the findings early humans adapted to desert-like conditions, and that changes our understanding of our ancestors. Our understanding of our ancestors are getting changed almost every day because they just discovered yet another dinosaur that they didn't think existed that was huge, weighed like 2,000 tons or something. So the more we think we know, the more we don't know. But the really interesting part about this article was that by doing archaeology, we can see that Homo erectus keeps coming back to the same landscape over and over thousands of years. Wow. Meaning they were migratory. They also said it's not a one-time camp. This is Julio Mercado, the professor, another University of Calgary professor. Data from the archaeological study showed that Homo erectus had repeatedly returned to the live-in locations with freshwater resources and developed stone tools, special tools. They were pretty smart. These prominent ancestors were not able to survive in every kind of environment, from rainforest to desert, but also they built boats and crossed oceans and straits to get to different islands. Modern humans, 200,000 to 300,000 years ago, were really adaptable, spanning from the Arctic tundra to the Sahara Desert. Wait a minute. How does that happen? How can that possibly be true? Because after all, aren't we fragile, and aren't we supposed to go extinct if we don't, if our globe warms 31.5 degrees Celsius? Apparently not. And this kind of gives me hope that, if our ancestors could figure it out, why can't we? I think it's good. It's a good news. And of course, it doesn't get mainstream coverage. But I'm Dr. Catherine Johnson, your host. You're watching the KJ Show with me, Dr. KJ, and I'll be right back.
What if there were a super tiny device that could diagnose the brain and is smaller than a single human hair? What if you could see inside the brain to help an epilepsy patient during surgery or to help the fight against Parkinson's disease? Dr. Patricia Broderick is proud to announce the Broderick Probe, a biomedical and electronic breakthrough. Imagine a probe to help with the understanding and potential cure of brain-related diseases. To learn more, listen live to the Easy Sense radio show with host Dr. Broderick. And to help support the Broderick Foundation, please go to easysense.com and learn how, with your help, we can fight these horrific brain disorders. That's easysense.com to learn more and help support the Broderick Foundation. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness, Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them, rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals.
Hello and welcome back to the KJ Show. I'm Dr. Catherine Johnson, Dr. KJ, your host. And today I am talking about nuclear energy is powering our future. It is really going to be the power of the future because, not surprisingly, we're going to increase our demands for electricity, especially AI and data centers. So that's one of the big reasons for this comeback. But nuclear energy is a booming industry. And it's funny, the past 20, 30 years have not been good ones for nuclear energy. When I first got in the energy industry, everybody wanted to get rid of um, the the nuclear power plants, and a lot of people in my business were anti-nuclear and really thinking it was evil. They've now changed their minds. And people who protested against nuclear plants in the 60s and 70s are now actually saying, no, 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 we need it. We need it. It's not that big, scary thing it used to be. So if you can see that there's energy, it's been nuclear is becoming a much more significant part of the energy mix. I think I have a graph on that. But no plants have been built in on time or in budget in America or Europe since the last 20 years. I'm sorry, it's hard to read, but it's basically showing you that France continues to dominate in nuclear energy building. In fact, they're 99, 98%, 97% of their power capacity is nuclear. But other countries are also starting to build in nuclear power plants. And in fact, we finally got a plant opened up in Georgia. It was over cost overruns, but it's the first time we've had a nuclear plant open up in 20 years, I guess. Sorry, it's hard to read, but basically what it's saying is that nuclear energy is becoming more and more a mix on a global level because more and more countries are realizing that it just makes good business sense. You can take the chart down. I don't want to give people headaches. Basically, the costs it's also cost driven, which is why I like being pragmatic because I'm a business person. And it's like if the costs of renewable energy have tumbled, but expensive nuclear plants and Finland have suffered delays, but not anymore. But in August 5th, the latest sign of nuclear enthusiasm, Fermi and Westinghouse, a nuclear partnership, unveiled a new partnership. Fermi and Westinghouse are two big nuclear tech giants. They unveiled a new partnership that will seek to build 4 of the largest 1,000 reactors in Amarillo, Texas, in long-term nuclear winter, shows the sprouts. Anyway, so they're going to start building nuclear power plants in Texas, in Amarillo. And the reason is because the governments in many Western countries are starting to understand that they need a secure and independent source of electricity. I think that's what Trump said yesterday at the UN. I'm pretty sure you have to have energy security and energy independence. And that, just as a good global leader, you can't be beholden to your enemies for oil. I mean, that doesn't make sense. Secondly, a big tech is really powering this. Google, Amazon, they're all making deals to put in fire nuclear power plants. I mean, Bill Gates bought the 3 Mile Island to help with all the AI data centers, and everyone's concerned, and I've talked about it here too, about the increased demand for energy that AI data centers require and the fact that they're built in places that don't have very good infrastructure. Kansas wheat fields do not have a lot of infrastructure to support huge AI data centers, which is exactly where they're putting them. Doesn't make sense. Lastly, they think that there's a lot of new ways. There's new thinking about how we can finance nuclear energy. It's not maybe you don't have to be the big, risky, big power plants that have been in the past, and I'll talk about that soon. But also, it's that, nuclear energy has taken a shift. And as one person says, Samala Bao, head of the World Nuclear Association, says something is different this time. Yeah, the economics are finally making sense. Whenever you have economics making sense, then suddenly it becomes much more pragmatic than just a pie in the sky idea. So across in the European Commission, this is also interesting. The European Commission has long, been very hesitant to say that nuclear energy is green or renewable, but it is. It really is. So now the European Commission has decided, okay, never mind. We're gonna go because the Green New Deal is dead there too. And they decided that they're going to increase their nuclear capacity from 100 gigawatts to 145 gigawatts by 2050. That's a huge, massive increase. And Germany decided to say, I'm no longer going to say nuclear energy is bad, even though they shut down all their nuclear power plants and people froze to death. They were relying on, Russian oil. Germany decided not to oppose calling nuclear energy green in the European Commission, and France went ahead and built 6 more power plants because they needed it. France has been relying on nuclear energy for decades and decades, and their power plants are old, and they want more new ones. And they also have, by the way, in France, wind turbines and things too, but they hardly ever turn on the wind turbines. They rely on nuclear energy about 97% of the time. In July, Britain decided that they were going to proceed with two giant reactors that are going to cost $51 billion. In fact, that was sort of what Trump was talking about when he just got back from the UK. And that tech giants, Amazon, Google, Sam Altman, who's the boss of OpenAI, they're raising all kinds of money. We're talking millions and millions of dollars to build nuclear power plants in the United States to help them provide the power for their data centers and their AI. Makes sense, right? Another deal is Google has signed a deal with Keros to develop a fleet of small modular reactors by 2035. And another startup is attracting big money too. Commonwealth Fusion Systems is backed by Gates, is unveiled $863 million in fresh funding. So these are big numbers because, frankly, these tech giants understand that if they don't have electricity, they're not going to be able to run their data centers, and AI isn't going to be the thing that everybody wants it to be. And I always say, when big business starts paying attention, somehow they're concerned about renewable energy. Well, kind of fades. Economics always takes over, doesn't it? So lastly, they think that these fusion startups, which are a whole different way of generating electricity, and if you can work, fusion's really a lot less risky than fission, but they think that there's a fusion startup that raised $2.6 billion in July. That is amazing. And they basically are saying that the industry needs clean, firm power from nuclear to complement renewables. I've been saying that for a long time, that supporting nuclear in the middle to long term is basically a way to go. And this is something I have been saying in my previous show and this one too for a long time. Nuclear energy is reliable. Renewable energy isn't, as much as we'd like to think it is, unless you're talking hydro, which is a whole nother conversation. But China and South Korea are big demonstrating that it's possible to build power plants, big reactors in 5 years and on budget. And that's what chart 3 shows. We have a minute for second, third. They basically are saying that, there is a way to build nuclear power plants faster and cheaper, and they're going to do it. Don't worry about the chart. I'm Dr. Katherine Johnson, your host. You're watching the KJ Show with me, Dr. KJ, and I'll be right back.
Did you know that your beliefs create your entire reality, but it's the subconscious beliefs that do most of the creating? Belief shifter and life coach Shiraz can help you identify those limiting beliefs and eliminate them, often in a single session.
It was almost instant, I had relief right away.
Creating better health, relationships, careers, and finances. Let Shiraz help you step out of safety and into awareness.
Definitely something's happening. It's like a flow inside. It feels good.
Whether in person or online, Shiraz provides personal coaching, belief shifting. Visit Shiraz at energeticmagic.com or call 416-529-7429. Energetic Magic. Find your greater happiness. Be well. Be aware. Be magical.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of the Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on the Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
And welcome back to the KJ Show with Dr. KJ. I'm your host, Dr. Katherine Johnson, and today I'm talking about the fact that nuclear energy is going to be the power of the future. I know this was something that they thought was going to happen in the 50s and 60s, took a little bit of a U-turn, derailment, but now it's coming back because, frankly, it finally makes economic sense. And the other thing that's really exciting, this is something I'm really happy to see, the technological advances have finally been achieved. Now we don't have to build the old power plants like Diablo Canyon that are huge and very expensive. Now they can build something called SMR, or a small modular reactor. I think we have pictures of them. It's a type of nuclear fission reactor. Yes, see, it's much smaller, and it basically has an electric, it basically makes 300, rated 300 megawatts, which is pretty good for a power plant. And it basically are designed to be factory fabricated, and they can be transported to all kinds of locations that don't necessarily have a lot of infrastructure. In fact, they're using them in places like Alaska, or in places where you need to have temporary, where there are power outages. It's a really wonderful, revolutionary idea. And it's basically refers to the size and capacity. It's a modular construction approach. Reactor technologies may vary, but there's about 5 different MR designs around the country being piloted, and they basically have all different kinds of reactors in terms of just different kinds of neutron reactors and salt and gas cooled. And the whole point is there's a lot of different variations on a theme, but small nuclear modular reactors is probably the way it's going to go in the future. We're not building huge Diablo Canyons anymore because it just doesn't make economic sense, but we're going to be able to deploy SMRs all over where we need it. They have a capacity, and they're about 1/3 of the generating capacity of traditional nuclear power plant, which is pretty impressive. And they're smaller, so they can go in other places. And basically they can be sited on locations that are not suitable for traditional nuclear power plants, like wheat fields in Kansas, right? Prefabricated units can be manufactured and then shipped and installed on site, making them more affordable to build them than the large power reactors, and which are often custom designed, and frankly, they take up a lot of land and they take a long time, and there's cost overruns, and there's environmental issues and all kinds of things. They also are cost savings. It doesn't take as long to build, and they can be deployed incrementally to match the need. So you start out with one, and if you need another one, it's like a Lego block. You put in one, and if you need another one, you put in another one. It makes so much more sense. And this is why they're putting them up in Texas. It also helps with the limited grid coverage in rural areas, as I've said. This is really interesting. I found this out when I was researching the show. Basically, they don't require frequent refueling, which is something that nuclear power plants do. Power plants based in SMRs may require refueling every 3 to 7 years, which I suppose is a little dangerous. SMRs can actually go up to 30 years without being needed to be refilled. That's a huge benefit, especially if you're in a remote area. So this seems to be a really logical solution, and I'm so glad the engineers have finally figured it out. I'd rather not have new SMRs than, say, umbrellas blocking the sun. Lastly, Sweden, who is, pretty renewable, pretty green energy focused. Sweden's been, leading the world. Thank you, Greta Thunberg. But basically, they now have decided the Swedes are going to build small SMRs, little generators all across Sweden, to churned out by factories and then transported to suitable sites. It's not yet, the technology isn't quite commercially viable yet. They do think that it offers, quote, a tantalizing future. Sweden has convinced over 120 firms to attempt to build SMRs, and Barclays, a bank, is funding it, and it predicts that between 2030 and 2050, net nuclear capability outside of China and Russia will increase by half. Well, that's a good sign right there. And saying that over 450 gigawatts, that's a lot of electricity, will be accounting from SMRs, which is 40 to 60% of the total market. So SMRs are going to basically take up where traditional, your dad's nuclear power plants left off, and they're going to be able to fund and fuel this economy that is increasingly reliant on electrification. Electricity, it's not just the push towards, electrifying everything. It's also the fact that AI data centers are exploding and need a lot of power. This is a way that we can actually meet those power needs without jeopardizing the environment or our own needs. Why should, people in rural Kansas suffer because they have a data center and they don't have any electricity, which happens. So dozens of startups are also pursuing nuclear fusion, which I still think is a little far away, but it's a little riskier. But at least they're starting to make some tangible in progress in these areas. Nuclear power has emerged as a strong candidate for companies looking to power data centers while cutting emissions. Unlike wind turbines and solar arrays that generate electricity intermittently, nuclear power plants typically put out a constant supply of energy to the grid, which pretty much aligns well with what data center needs. Data centers run 24/7, according to Rob Gramlich, president of Grid Strategies, a consultancy focused on electricity and transmission. And this is the thing that people who promote renewables don't always talk about. The sun doesn't always shine, the wind doesn't always blow, and often the wind blows way late at night when we don't need the electricity and we haven't gotten the battery storage technology to where it needs to be so we can capture that wind, store it in a battery, and then redeploy it when we need the power during the day. So this here provides a really elegant solution, I think. You can get the electricity reliability that we need. You don't have to, you can do it in a reasonable fashion. It's not going to take up as much environmental space. It's not going to be as costly. It's actually going to be safer. And they basically are looking at this is probably the future, especially now that people are realizing that nuclear is green, not just because it glows green, but it is a really green technology. And so basically Amazon has said that they're getting involved with next generation nuclear technology in my old home state of Maryland with X Energy. The startup is among those working to create smarter, more standardized reactors that can be built quickly with less expense. That all sounds like progress to me. It is amazing how we can finally figure all this stuff out. And doesn't it make more sense to have deployable nuclear reactors rather than ones that just live in big places and like 3 Mile Island or Diablo Canyon, and you have to have this huge infrastructure, and you have to have, it's just a big footprint if you're environmentally footprint. So I'm really pleased that small modular reactors have been identified as a need and can be used to power data centers. Because frankly, I can tell you the electric utility industry is very worried about the explosion of AI and the explosion of data centers, and they're worried about how they're going to supply it, given the fact that the grid is 80 years old. So here's a solution. I think that's a good one. I'm Dr. Katherine Johnson. You're watching the KJ Show with me, Dr. KJ, and I'll be right back.
Mike Zorek, a 3-time California state champion in Greco-Roman wrestling at 114 pounds. Mike, blind since birth, was born in Hartford, Connecticut. He was a 6-time national placer, including 2 seconds, 2 thirds, and 2 fourths. He also won the Veterans Folk Style Wrestling twice at 152 pounds. In all these tournaments, he was the only blind competitor. Nancy Zorek, a creative spirit whose talents have taken her to the stage and into galleries and exhibitions in several states. Her father, a commercial artist who shared his instruments with his daughter and helped her fine-tune her natural abilities, influenced her decision to follow in his footsteps. Ms. Zorek has enjoyed a fruitful career doing what she loves. Listen Saturday mornings at 12 Eastern for the Nancy and Mike Show for heartwarming stories and interesting talk. Master of words, powerful player. What life-changing words can Dr. Janet Smith Warfield pull out of her magical toolbox that just might mysteriously open a door you never knew was there? A door to free yourself from fear forever. Transform your rage into right action. Release your guilt. Position you into a life of freedom, purpose, passion, power, and peace. All quite suddenly, unexpectedly, and almost miraculously, with no effort on your part. Join Dr. Janet on Dancing with Words, Dancing with Wisdom, as she and her guests show you how words map our experiences, immersing you in a sound bath that relaxes your muscles, opens your mind, and supports you in co-creating your extraordinary life.
And welcome back to the KJ Show with me, Dr. KJ, on my new YouTube channel. I hope you're enjoying the show. Today I've been talking about, nuclear power is the energy future. But I always like to have a part of the show where there's energy talk, and it used to be I could have people call in. You can't call in right now, but you can send me comments and I'll react to them. But because I wasn't sure if anybody was going to comment, I found a story I wanted to share. And if you've watched my show at all, you know that I absolutely think beavers are the most wonderful creatures. And they're saving habitats. And the one thing I love about beavers the most is the mama beaver is the general construction superintendent. And she makes all the other beavers do her job. And she won't put her little kits into the dam until it's safe. So I thought, wow, female engineers. There you go. But basically, I'm not an engineer, but researchers are now using AI to figure out why beaver dams are so darn effective and how it's helping impact on local habitats and show that humans can help. And actually, they're also not only this is a research project done by a Chinese PhD student, but it's also in tandem with trying to convince farmers not to blow up beaver dams, but to actually figure out more humane solutions and actually try to put in levelers so they won't block the water flow to their cropland, but they also don't want to kill the beavers. And if you blow up a beaver dam, apparently they come right back. They rebuild it within a week or two. So, but they're studying, and this is so funny why they have AI, and this is a PhD dissertation topic. They're actually studying the pond length of the pond size and length and to dam length, vegetation, stream power, and they're figuring out that no matter where beavers are, whether it's the Rockies or the Great Plains, beavers build these dams that slow the currents into ponds that reshape channels and actually spread wetlands across valleys. Farmers don't necessarily like that, but the mud and stick barriers create habitat for willows and cottonwoods and all kinds of wonderful creatures. In fact, in Alaska, they're building back the tundra and they're creating habitats for more salmon, which of course the bears like. So all of these things are helpful. But so especially when there's droughts and wildfires are more frequent, people are wanting to say, well, the ponds actually serve as a natural reservoir. And then when the streams run low, the benefits have fueled efforts to reintroduce beavers to the river systems and to mimic their work. They're actually now mimicking using AI to build something called as beaver dam analogs. So rather than having beavers do it, humans are doing it. Like, just let the beavers do their thing. This is so funny. But they're using high resolution aerial imagery and machine learning, and they've mapped more than 1,200 individual beaver ponds across Colorado, Wyoming, Montana, and Oregon. And they're figuring out why beaver dams are so effective. I don't think we need to waste our AI data on this. Just let the beavers be, huh? But they actually say that the results confirmed what the ecologists suspected, that longer dams hold water better. And by establishing relationships between dam length and water storage, the study equips restoration workers with tools to predict pond size in advance. Okay. A beaver dam is built to store water and give the big beaver a bigger backyard, according to one of the professors. And basically, if you're storing more water in the landscape, you're automatically protecting against drought and the spread of wildfire. So we don't need to have controlled burns. We don't need to have human intervention. We just need to get out of the way. And this is why I love the story, because I love beavers. And the reason I love them is, here we are trying to mimic them. Just let them be. And now there are some concerns because beavers can cause damage, property damage. And so one of the issues is they're also worried that beavers will be, shot or poisoned or blown up and things. So a lot of the concern is that once in Wisconsin, instead of blowing them dams up and poisoning them, they were basically trying to, coexist peacefully. So they decided, this one woman who bought property and then realized it was beaver dammed up, she was like, I don't want to kill the beavers. What do I do? So she basically bought this. I think I have a picture of it. I have a lot of pictures here. Flexible pipes this is the beaver dam that she on her property. And there's another, go next one. Sounds like something out of Star Wars, a power fluxator. It's basically, keep going to the next one. Next slide. Zach, the next slide. Don't we have another picture? It's basically hand constructed low flow. That's another beaver pond. We can keep going. This is the researcher mimicking beavers. And then the last one here. So this is basically a low flow control device, which is a solution to beaver flooding. They limit the dams that beavers build and reduce the impacts of human interference. They're hand constructed, flexible pipes and fencing. There's all different kinds out there. And apparently, they aim to reduce the desirability of potential dam sites, redirect beavers' attention, or sneak pond water away without attracting their notice. And they don't think as this one person says, it's useless to tear out or dynamite beaver dams, as the beavers, if active, will replace them almost as fast as destroyed. I wish our construction crews were that quickly. Beavers are really adaptable, this gentleman says. Moving forward in a changing climate, hopefully beavers are going to be able to adapt and roll with the punches a bit and continue to create these ecosystem engineering benefits. The other thing is beavers are important collaborator in adapting to the new climate future in North America and Europe. The more we can learn to work with them effectively, the better off we're going to be. So instead of shooting them and killing them, let's put in these dam controllers to sort of help, farmers get the water they need for their plants, and have the beavers maybe not notice that their dam isn't as high as it used to be. They can cause property damage, but research shows that they more positively impact the environment. So landowners are no longer trapping beavers and trying to kill them or shoot them or dynamite them. They're basically figuring out a way to do it humanely. I really think it is fascinating that beavers are so effective. They kind of outsmart us, which is why they end up almost driven to extinction when the beaver hat craze in Alaska came on. And I think beavers were almost extinct in Alaska, and now they're back to coming back in coming back to full strength. Now, obviously, we don't want to upset the ecological balance. I don't know if beavers have any natural predators. I doubt it. Maybe mountain lions. I don't know. Maybe bears. I don't know. But the thing is, the most common cause for beavers dying is trees falling on them. So there is, we don't want to have a beaver population run amok. But we also want to have a solution where the beavers can cohabitate peacefully with the landowners and actually, do what beavers are supposed to do, which is they're hardwired to build dams and save the environment. And the sooner we can realize that maybe their benefits outweigh their risks, the better we will be as a society and as a planet. I've done a lot of stories over the years about beavers and how they've helped, restore. They prevented droughts in Britain with their dams. They rebuilt an entire culvert ditch area that had been under, debate for 7 years in the Czech government, and they were going to spend all this kind of money. A beaver's family came in about 2 weeks. It was built exactly the way they wanted it, with no money and and very effectively. So I think that beavers should not be viewed as a rodent necessary as a problem. I think they should be viewed as a solution, and we need to make sure that we let the beavers live with us together. I mean, there are a lot, I just don't understand why people don't like beavers. That's my favorite thing. I love beavers. But anyway, I just wanted to give another call out to my favorite animal. They're called the Swiss Army knife of the environmental in the environmental game, and they are. I'm Dr. Kathryn Johnson. You're watching the KJ Show with me, Dr. Kathryn KJ, and I'll be right back.
Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness: Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them, rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of the Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on the Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Hello and welcome back to the KJ Show with me, Dr. Catherine Johnson, Dr. KJ. And today I am talking about nuclear power as the future energy source. And it's really getting exciting because yesterday NASA announced a whole slew of 10 brilliant scientists who are going to be astronauts who may go to the moon and even Mars. One of the ways they're going to get there and one of the ways they're going to survive is by having nuclear power. So there's no more worries. It's becoming less concerned about nuclear power plant damages, and actually it's a global point of agreement now that nuclear power is no longer optional, it's required. And so the United States and the United Kingdom have enabled an Atlantic Partnership for Advanced Energy. I think that's what Trump was talking about last week, which will support investment and shorten approval time for reactor designs. This is for traditional nuclears. And if the sector gets improved in one country, it can then be fast-tracked and approved all over other countries in Europe. And it gets the approval time from 3 to 4 years to 2. And many of the benefits have, at least 10 companies have said that they're going to benefit from these transatlantic deals. And another company is saying receives $109 million to develop small modular nuclear reactors. Not surprisingly, Bill Gates and other folks are welcoming this new deal as a way to sort of get things going. But it also is going to extend to fusion, which complements the other DOE programs around fusion. And there's a launch of a China fusion company, and under China's main nuclear power plant enterprise. But China and Russia, now here's something of concern. China and Russia continue to build on the history of nuclear cooperation and are actually going to make China is now the largest producer of nuclear power. So don't you think we ought to get in the game too? And it's going to they want to put a nuclear reactor on the moon by 2035. Now that would be really interesting. I don't know if we want Chinese to have a nuclear reactor on the moon, but we might have to have a nuclear reactor on the moon at some point. Following this announcement, NASA declared that they're going to have a reactor on the moon by 2030. So the space race is back on. Who's going to be the first to put a nuclear reactor on the moon? It'll be interesting to see. And this accelerates a plan to put a nuclear reactor in orbit. And its stated purpose is to make sure that China and Russia don't carve up the moon. It's almost back to like the 1950s and 60s with, I love the movie The Right Stuff, where they talked about the space race and trying to get to the moon and all these things. But the players haven't changed. It's still Russia and China are trying to get to space first and dominate space. And we, the United States, have to really catch up. So if the plans go ahead, they'll also, if they start doing a nuclear reactor orbiting, then the next step is to actually have a way to put nuclear reactors on Mars. And they can will lay the groundwork for creating oxygen and water, which is the first part for moon colonization. And then permanent human moon bases might be in sight, and the first step to create dense, long-lasting energy. There's a company out there called Rosatom, which basically offers a turnkey nuclear power program. I hope they're being vetted to seemingly anyone who wants it. They're the only company that can build and close a nuclear plant and handle all the steps in between, from mining to waste disposal. Russia is using them. They're happy to bring in their own workers, training the local technicians, and then their ability to handle every step of the nuclear life cycle gives the Russian state an appealing offer to anyone who wants to spur innovation. I don't think we want the Russians to get ahead of us in building nuclear power plants, do we? Hope not. Russia is also helped build. Rosatom has built 30 power plants in 10 countries with projects over Vietnam, Mali, Myanmar. Yes, Myanmar, and have signed agreements with Russia this year. So this is really becoming kind of scary. But if Russia people can do it, why can't we? So there's another reactor. This is the reactor in China, the Hulong reactor. It's the most deployed third generation nuclear reactor design worldwide. And China has agreements to make 20 more. Agreements to put these reactors in 20 more countries. 2 are already operating in Pakistan, and there's 41 operating worldwide. So what's happening is China and Russia aren't constrained by the environmental concerns that maybe America and the EU are, and they're building nuclear power plants in different configurations, different ways, and they're not really hampered. And I think we need to step up the pace. We do not want China and Russia, do we, to win the nuclear reactor business? Do we want them to have more nuclear power than we do? That'll give them certainly a military advantage. And if we're going to have orbiting nuclear reactors, I'd rather them be controlled by the United States rather than, say, our enemies. So this is interesting. It also points out that China and Russia really don't care about environmental issues as much as they care about energy security, energy independence, something that I think we've heard from the president previously, and I think we need to start considering more. Not only do we need nuclear energy for our own energy security and energy independence, we also need it for our own technological demands. So it's just, to me, it's sort of the perfect storm that's coming. John had a question. Is there a good regulatory framework for SMRs, and can we make sure they don't explode? Actually, the DOE is working on a regulatory framework for SMRs, and they're actually, get this, helping Poland build one. I don't know why they're not helping the United States build one, but the DOE under Biden was working with Poland to build SMRs overseas in Poland. And I'm like, okay. So we are going to, believe me, the Nuclear Regulatory Commission is not going to allow these things to not be unlicensed. I mean, Americans are really good at regulations, especially in the atomic energy industry and the atomic business. So there will be frameworks, there will be regulatory constraints. Rest assured, it will not go, just off on a tangent or somewhere. We're not going to be able to do maybe what they do in Russia, which is, put up a nuclear power plant wherever you want. No, it'll be vetted, and there'll be, the good thing about the United States electric utility industry is it is regulated, and it is designed to help us protect public safety and make sure that there's power available for everyone. So, and I have a lot of people that I know that are regulators who want to do the right thing. So I'm not worried about SMRs going out there and proliferating. I think they'll have very clear rules. And besides, the electric utilities want to get in on the action, and they're going to want to play by the rules too. So I'm more worried about Russia and China doing what they want to do, especially if it involves the moon and Mars. I'm Dr. Katherine Johnson. You're watching The KJ Show with me, Dr. KJ, and I'll be right back.
Did you know that your beliefs create your entire reality, but it's the subconscious beliefs that do most of the creating? Belief shifter and life coach Shiraz can help you identify those limiting beliefs and eliminate them, often in a single session.
Like, it was almost instant. Like, I had relief right away.
Creating better health, relationships, careers, and finances. Let Shiraz help you step out of safety and into awareness.
Definitely something's happening. It's like a flow inside. It feels good.
Whether in person or online, Shiraz provides personal coaching, belief shifting. Visit Shiraz at energeticmagic.com or call 416-529-7429. Energetic Magic. Find your greater happiness. Be well. Be aware. Be magical. What if there were a super tiny device that could diagnose the brain and is smaller than a single human hair? What if you could see inside the brain to help an epilepsy patient during surgery or to help the fight against Parkinson's disease? Dr. Patricia Broderick is proud to announce the Broderick Probe, a biomedical and electronic breakthrough. Imagine a probe to help with the understanding and potential cure of brain-related diseases. To learn more, listen live to the Easy Sense radio show with host Dr. Broderick. And to help support the Broderick Foundation, please go to easysense.com and learn how, with your help, we can fight these horrific brain disorders. That's easysense.com to learn more and help support the Broderick Foundation.
And welcome back to the KJ Show with me, Dr. KJ. I've been talking about nuclear energy and the powering the future, but if you figured out by now, I actually really like stories about animals too. And I found this really funny story, and it's so typical. So if you want to put it up, there's a flock of sheep in Yorkshire, England, that apparently met with a fence. And the farmer was really surprised to see his sheep full with all these red little faces with bright pink heads. What happened is the farmer thought that, some alien had come down or something. But when he looked closer, the sheep had been rubbing up against a brand new feeder, which had been freshly painted bright red. And without knowing it, they'd given themselves these makeovers, which then went viral. And it became a sheep fashion show, which I thought was hilarious. And so now they've had internet, views, and it is just, sheep are funny anyway. But the fact that they all did it sort of illustrates why they're called sheep. And basically, the farmer figured it out, and hopefully the paint doesn't hurt the sheep. But I was thinking, okay, so now we have sheep. Let me talk about the other thing about sheep. And this is something I've talked about in previous shows, but I want to just point it out. Sheep are also brought in to help graze the PV fields, the solar panels that are placed in like farmland. So instead of, and they don't want cows because cows are too big. So there was a solar energy farm that brings in sheep as landscapers, and they're basically having them mow the grass. So there's a field it's in Minnesota actually, where they're welcome 200 temporary employees to the property, and they're actually creating charm, they say, to the energy farm. This Eli Valdez lets out a whistle and shakes a feed biscuits, and suddenly all these sheep crowd around, and they go, and it's an OC Solar Power built-in Converse has hired the herd to cut the grass. So the sheep come in, they do what sheep do, they eat the grass. It keeps the grass away from the solar panels, which means the solar panels can still work effectively. Doesn't require any gas fumes, or unless you talk about sheep doing what sheep do. But in general, it's an ecologically helpful solution. And the funny thing is, they said sheep are the perfect size to fit under and around the metal frames, holding the solar panels. As the animals wander the field, 2 emus stand guard as sheepdogs, because the emus, I guess, guard sheep. I had no idea. And the emus act like guard dog and protect the sheep. And the sheep do their job. And actually, sheep are much better lawnmowers than cows. So, and one really clever solar farmer / shepherd has realized that she can use the wool from the sheep that she uses to trim her grass and can sell it as solar wool, because it is wool by sheep that are helping with the solar farms. So it's just, I saw this at a farm at our county fair too. I just thought it was really cute that, sheep can be useful. And the fact that these sheep are found their pink fashion show is just funny. But sheep are becoming very important to solar farming across the United States and in Europe. So who knew? So I love beavers, and I think sheep are pretty cool too. I'm Dr. Katherine Johnson. Thank you so much for watching me. I also, don't forget, you have the Energy Savings Handbook for Energy Savings. It's available on Amazon. It has 7 easy ways to save energy and the planet. Pick it up. You can also get it on my website, johnsonconsults.com. And thank you so much, and I'll be back next week with another fun show. Have a great week. Bye.
This has been The KJ Show. Tune in next week as Katherine shares her insights to current changes in the energy industry while drawing on her experience as an energy efficiency consultant for the past 30 years, right here on The KJ Show.